I need to remind you about that next month.
EAC just
I won't
kicked
be
on,
here the
probably
first
something
week of
that
August.
Yeah, I think I put it on, it's on, because we gotta figure out September too, the first Monday's holiday.
Yeah, I'm gonna be here in September.
Any date?
From the first to the 10th.
We'll be back to 2003. Put that in the schedule. Is that a new desk, or do they always have that desk? It's a new desk. Really? I mean, wood. Professional car washer that we had. You should go to business for that. You could get in there, brother.
Smith completed
He's trained in it, so.
Oh my
She's a
goodness.
bit old for that.
Thank you. And I saw when I did that, and I thought I fixed it. I guess I didn't.
Rick, any luck with Denny or no?
Try it again today.
I did too. Leaving him voicemails, in my opinion, is kind of like,
Who's that, the lunch with the sign guy?
yeah.
Do it together
So he doesn't like he doesn't return unless you get him like
to answer the
he
phone.
answers the phone. He's not returning your calls. And it's not just us. He did that to Duncannon as well.
What's the solution?
Go talk to Pierce and get a Pierce to send it. I don't know. What? Yeah, you've been good.
I was thinking the same thing.
The only other thing that I can think of, he's a national sales director, so maybe he can assign someone or just tell
Right.
Hudson Valley, you're gonna do this. But I don't know.
Charles, what was your option?
Take a field trip to Denver.
Assuming he's there. All right, let's get the show on the road, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call conducted. Reading the minutes of the last meeting.
Make a motion, we accept the meeting. The minutes of the last
Second.
meeting.
All in favor? Beautiful. All right, so the tower ladder replacement proposal. So Cap, thanks for a wonderful job on putting that all together. We put it into as I explained, it wasn't a chain of command issue. It was Commissioner Buckus and I had just had a conversation about filtering everything through us, and that's what we were trying to do. We put it all together in conversation with the chief. We came up with, do we get them to agree to a number and then we get a number that's different? Or do we try to get a real number from Denny and then go to the village board? Am I correct? Is that where we kind of left off? And we can't get in touch with them, so I'm open for suggestions. How do we proceed?
Well, with respect to the village board, they do have the estimate from Mike Wilbur when he did his report, and we also gave him, there was a number
Yeah, so,
on the Duncannon proposal.
yeah, Seagrave's portion of the project can be $1.8 million as of like October of 24.
Mhm.
Alex is from ITE. He's steadfast with his $100,000 for that.
Mhm.
So the village board knows the rough numbers,
Okay,
and we can continue to give those to them, but until we give them
so
a
then,
real number to sign a contract, I don't know that there's anything more for them to approve right now. Because they've, they did direct us to go out and pursue this option.
what I thought the conversation was, do we buy that stick?
Yeah, so right now,
Right, that's kind of,
yeah, so I got texted from Alex from ITE. The Undercliff Fire Company backed out of the deal to buy the aerial scope that's down there. So that one is still available. The thing that it's kind of a catch-22 because you don't need the aerial scope, the aerial, if you don't have Seagrave's,
Right.
proposal.
Right.
However, if you don't have the aerial scope, then you
you don't need the
there's no
proposal.
project.
That's what I said to you, I agree.
I spoke with the chief briefly about this, and I think, a letter of intent to say, hey, Alex, we are intending on doing this. We do intend on fulfilling the, requirements to purchase this and refurb it through your company and all this other stuff. Just so when another company says, oh, Alex, you got 3 or 4 of them there, not saying Alex would, because Alex throughout this entire thing has always, called me and said, hey, very nice dude, so,
And I think a letter of intention is a good compromise. It shows that we're still committed, so Alex doesn't get cold feet.
Okay, is there any reason why we shouldn't redate this memo and send it to the village board or to the mayor?
in my opinion, I think we should just update the village board of where we're at. Say, hey, we're still working through this with Seagrave. And it's not gonna be that 1.1 that Mr. Wilbur said, or it's not gonna be that 1.8, 1.9 that, Denny said. It's gonna be a 2.3 in that ballpark, give or take.
Okay, but I just gotta pause you though. You were in conversation with the mayor and that's kind of how we got to the memo, like you were gonna do the follow-up. So do we still need to do that or?
Well, yeah, I would just say, hey, we just need the village, this is where I'm at is, if the village isn't ready to pursue this, then we just, inform Alex of where we're at, cause he's the only one that's really in touch with us, and then we kinda let Denny, whenever he gives us a proposal, he gives it to us.
Okay,
If not, I just don't wanna waste whoever's time, reaching out to Seagrave, making 3-4 phone calls in a week, I know it takes a
Mhm.
couple seconds, but.
If I may,
always.
typically you wouldn't get a solid number until you went out to bid anyway. You'd only get an estimate from your dealership. They're not gonna give you your final number until you actually go out to bid and they come back on sealed bids.
This wouldn't be I thought this Seagrave chassis would be.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Typically you wouldn't get that. I don't know that you'd probably have to purchase this off a Sourcewell.
Yeah.
Exactly. So even then, you're not going to get that price until you engage with the dealer and say, hey, we're looking to buy this off of Sourcewell, give us the price. So I don't know that Denny's gonna give you a solid bid number or a solid final number until he knows, hey, listen, we're going to contract. We're ready to go to contract on this.
That makes sense.
The last thing that when I spoke to him not last week, the week before, so the second to last week or the last week in June, was I just need an estimate of what's it gonna cost, so we can then make this proposal and say, are you committed to doing this?
And if I remember correctly, the price was 1.8 million.
For Seagrave's part.
No, I believe that included, yeah, I believe it did. But then we made changes that we felt would have reduced the overall price, because there was things in there that Duncannon did that with Seagrave, that Seagrave is not gonna do, because Alex is gonna do it.
Yeah, so there's a couple things, and let me pull up the email, but
There were things that Alex was gonna do, and there were things that we deleted,
Exactly.
so as
the
of,
largest being the generator.
October 8th, 2024, the Seagrave part of the project would be around $1.75 million, give or take. Timeline is 1,200 calendar days. So,
And a lot of that was based on Duncannon, that Seagrave wasn't gonna do things that Alex was going to do. Me personally, I think a $2 million number is sufficient to get the board to say yes or no.
I just don't know the fire truck market, how much inflation has increased over the past, 10 months.
And if it comes in more than $2 million, if it's 2.1, 2.2,
Right,
it's
it's,
5 or 10% more
Right.
than what, and you're paying this out over 15 years.
I think it's time to keep going, because the longer you wait,
It's gonna go up.
the number's
the cheaper
going,
it gets?
the number's gonna go up.
And the unfortunate, the village could say, yes, we're willing, we're ready to do this, we have our pen in hand, but without Denny and without Seagrave, answering the phone, then,
I think it might change, and once you tell him, hey, listen, we're ready to sign this
We're
contract.
moving on, we're ready. I agree.
Because if he's the national sales director, he's dealing with a lot of sales that, here's the order number,
Back to the memo for a moment, we're asking for them to approve 100 for the boom, and then sign a contract, to have it refurbished and mounted. So should I move on from this memo, or is it something we want to give to them?
I think we have to send them one memo, yeah.
And we can make the contract contingent upon us purchasing a chassis.
I mean, at least this puts something in front of them to talk about next week.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm gonna redate it. I'm gonna date it for tomorrow or tonight, and I'm gonna send it to them.
If this is something the village doesn't wanna entertain,
Right, tell us now.
tell us now,
Shut it down.
and we'll deal with it what we have to, because I think right now, like the lighting that's on the tower ladder, there's 1 or 2 lights that are out, and we can't get the parts for it, and I think to replace all the lighting was $15,000, you know? So those are the expenses that are gonna come with keeping it.
Right. Understood. What else needs to happen? Anything at the moment?
I think at the work session, you just try to engage as much conversation, and I know they really can't commit until there's the business meeting, but just understand that, hey,
It's all in this one.
oh, is it? Okay.
Which
so-
is not this week, next week, right? 15,
21st.
third week. Okay.
And listen, we're not looking for them to commit to say, hey, we
Right.
make a motion, we buy it. We're looking for,
Right.
yes, we're committed to doing this.
Right.
Get us the contract, get us the price.
Okay. Good on tower ladder for the moment? Carol, you good with it? I know, Chief, in your monthly today, you said that 412 is just waiting to come back from
You know,
lettering.
did not get back from him today,
Okay.
hear back from him today. He told me on Wednesday or Thursday, it would be ready this past Friday or Monday at the latest. I drove by yesterday, I was out that way. The lettering is done, it's all done. He's just putting the lighting on, back on the sides and whatnot.
Okay, do you need us to do anything?
No, just keeping you abreast of the status. We should have had it back 3 weeks ago.
Okay, on the training stipend law, hopefully everyone took a look at that, since I missed it last month. Is there any discussion on that, or can we just have, Chief Trainer send that over to, what are we doing with that? We're sending that to the attorney? Okay,
So in looking at that, let me pull it up again.
I have a hard copy if you want.
Do you? That would be helpful. I don't know where the comment came from.
That's the whole package with the amounts.
It says,
This looks very different on my phone than it did on the computer.
yeah. So maintain required certifications and training to be determined by the Board of Fire Commissioners. Respond to a minimum of X for fire calls during the quarter for which the stipend is paid. Then there's a comment that says this requirement does not appear in the applicable statute. I don't know who made that comment, whether that was something that Joe had originally made.
Charlie, you need to see this?
Yeah.
Do we know where the original doc came from that you marked up? I think it came from Joe, but
Joe.
we don't know where he got it from.
Yeah, so I don't know if he put that comment in there or. Cause all my comments were redlined.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing that Mike did not comment on, that I want to comment on, the section on the annual review and
Okay.
what we're looking at for the annual review.
Okay.
It deals with retention and recruitment. I don't think that's a realistic analysis that we could do. And I personally don't believe that this law will help us recruit more people, but I do think it will help us get more people trained.
Okay. So what's the suggestion? Drop the retention?
Yeah, either drop that section or change it to an analysis of the training that our members are getting.
So this is program review and modification. The annual review shall include but not be limited to the following performance metrics: number of active volunteer firefighters, average response time to fire calls, percentage of fire calls responded to by volunteer firefighters, retention rate of volunteer firefighters, and impact on recruitment of new volunteer firefighters.
I don't think this law, $500 max for a training is going to entice people into the department or to retain them in the department. But I do think it'll help the members that we do get more training and more relevant training.
Mike, you have a problem pulling that section out?
No, not at all. I agree with Chief. I don't even know where that would have come from. But the part that I was asking about, the comment about it's not contained in the original statute, I don't know, are they like referring to the original law or?
Joe's probably referring to the Enabling Act.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And the reason why I think it should be in there is so that you don't have people joining or members just coming and taking classes to get paid and not showing up to anything. You should have to
You
earn
can
the.
also veto that by just not signing their training authorization line too, if they don't show up.
I think you if we're gonna send you to school and pay you to be there, then the village has to reap the benefits.
Right, and this is under review and modification where the Board of Fire Commissioners does an annual review, and those are the five things that should be included. So what do we do with it then? I heard what you just said about,
Yeah.
Your comment is about the active status, though.
Well, to be eligible to get paid
Yeah.
for the stipend, yes. In terms of review, I think the review should just simply be, you know, what type of classes are being taken, you know, and are the people that are taking the classes bringing that knowledge back and utilizing it?
right, because number of volunteers, response time, and percentage of calls responded to by volunteers, like what, it's,
100%.
yeah, right,
Yeah, we
Response
can't
time
go
is-
up from 100.
all right,
Response time is,
right, it's,
has no
Right.
bearing on training.
right,
Yeah, I think you can strike that, right? Strike.
I think
In
that whole
terms
section
of,
big B.
You know,
Is that response time, who put that in there?
we don't know.
we don't know.
Did that maybe that's just a way for New York State or whoever to just gauge, hey, you know, how many people that are getting this training are going to affect that incident, you know, rather than just having how many firefighter twos are you getting, or how many fire officer ones, how many, you know, that's the only thing I can think of.
That criteria, if it was from the enabling legislation, might be a direction towards New York State to determine how effective it is, since they're funding the initial training costs.
That's what I was thinking. That's something at the state level, right? We don't need that.
No.
Yeah, and if this were to bring more people into certain departments, not ours, but certain departments that are having trouble responding or being resounded, and if it eliminates that for them, great. I don't think it's really applicable to,
Right, but this is a local law in the village of Cornwall-on-Hudson,
Right.
so,
right,
So if it was simply a copy and paste from the state legislation,
right.
it needs to be.
He did put someone read it at least once because of the comments.
Mhm.
Are you comfortable with making modifications and passing it on now that it's July and he won't look at it before October, but,
I'll speak to Joe about it and
okay.
pass that on.
Thank you.
I'm in a meeting, I'll call you back.
All right, so I added under new business the first item, and I left, we have priorities on there twice, but another part of our conversation, Mike Buckus and I, was, what are our priorities? We feel like we're hitting, there's 9,000 things going on all the time. We need SCBA, we need apparatus, we don't have a priority list. So, and then going back to the whole thing with the memo, perfectly fine, and we can't tell you who to talk to, but as an established board, we're trying to make them work through us. So that's what that item is about. Figure out what our priorities are and voice it through this board. I don't know if there's any discussion on that. We're welcome to talk about it, but
Oh, I mean, I've been speaking with a couple of the members and everything, like, hey, you know, what would you like to see, the officers take care of? And I can't speak on the chiefs or all that stuff, but essentially our members just want the tools to be able to continue to do the job, right?
Right.
What they signed up to, and be able to, affect a positive change at the incidents that they respond to. With that, right now we're at a difficult spot where there's a lot of big ticket items and big ticket purchases that we have to make. Number one, obviously, I think we all agree upon, which is the tower ladder.
right.
looking at that, seeing how, you know, the village needs to commit to providing the tools for the service. How much debt do we want to inflict, or does the village want to inflict on themselves? So if they're looking at $2 million for a tower ladder, do they want to, you know, add another, you know, $500,000 for air packs? I don't know. That's a question for them. But we've been speaking with local politicians to see if we can get some financial support from them, whether it be a percentage of a cost for the air packs or all of the air packs. On a positive note, they are very eager to help out. They, Assembly Member Ekus is just looking for a letter. I spoke with the staff member from Senator Skoufis's office. He said that I'd be more than welcome to go up there and talk with their financial guy in the office and be able to you know, talk about how they can help.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the big things that are immediately the members are looking to get done. Right? You know, the gear, yes, we're getting gear and we have great gear, and you know, that's because past officers have put forth a plan to purchase turnout gear at a couple sets each year. You know, cylinders, same thing. You know, a couple sets each year. So we're kind of maxed out on these little items. And right now, we need those big items to kind of seal the deal.
Right.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, some members are a little bit frustrated because they're like, yes, we want to do this job, but we just need the tools to do this job.
Right.
And at times, it does sound greedy because we're always, you know, taking.
But in the same breath, we kicked the can down the road on the tower ladder and the engine, and when did we buy those SCBA? When were they bought?
Plus years ago, and that's the issue is the standards have changed so much in a short period of time that our equipment, if someone gets hurt, the negative impact that may have on benefits that member's family to that member, you know, the impact it might have on the village as a municipality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't have those answers, but it's always a chance for that to happen. You know, same thing with the tower ladder. You know, it's 20 years old or 25 years old. There's safety things that aren't in there that should be in there, and if something happens, then there
Right.
could be a negative impact on everything.
I think it's safe to say that no one in this room is responsible for the predicament we're in today. We're just trying to fix it.
No, yeah, you know.
Right.
And I would say in terms of the funding requests from the local politicians that the captain mentioned, to me, those letters should be coming from somebody higher than the captain. You know,
Right.
whether it comes
coming
from the
from the-
mayor,
Right.
the chief, the board of commissioners, you know. And I truly believe our biggest obstacle is if we were going to a fire or two every month where this equipment's getting used, it'd be no questions asked. You know, the trouble that we have is we don't go to fires every month. We have them, but we don't necessarily get them as regular as another department in a more busy area. But the fact of the matter is, whether you go to 30 fires a year or
Right.
one, you need the same equipment.
Right.
You know.
And the pay's the same.
Exactly. I'll be more than happy to write the letter and possibly, you know, get it co-signed by the chief and the commissioner and, you know, all this other stuff. I think all of us are just looking for action. You know, just to, you know, like Jeff said, keep pushing forward and just
Mhm.
you know, see what sticks at this point.
Right.
Because there's a lot of, you know, like I said, there's 900 things to do, but none of them are kind of gaining traction. We're kind of just spinning our wheels here and.
Right, but and I think part of the conversation that Commissioner Buckus and I had was we're coming at them, you know, we're throwing everything at the wall, but we're coming at them, you know, for like,
Mhm.
I mean, it's stuff that we need. It's not like, you know, we're making it up, but, so that was the reason for to try to prioritize.
And at last month's board meeting, maybe it was the work session, Trustee Brain, with respect to the DPW, asked for something like what we gave him for, not him, we gave the board, Mike Wilbur's schedule of things that need to be replaced. And that's kind of a simple one because it's mostly 3 apparatus. He asked for something like that from the DPW. So with respect to setting priorities, we could do something like that for the rest of the fire department. The smaller things, but still large, like the SCBA, that need to be replaced. That, you know, this is all about, yes, it's today, but it's also about the future, making sure that the department has all the equipment that it needs. And we can look backwards and see what is coming up in addition to those SCBA.
Okay.
Is that what you guys are looking for?
Exactly. I would say too with the SCBA's particularly, it's not like cylinders or gear. If you have rigs with different models of SCBA, even if they're all Scott, it puts the firefighters at risk, right?
Yeah, there was a
So,
death in
and so I would
Kingston.
articulate that to the board. You know, this is something that has to come up periodically, but this is why we have to, you know, it costs a lot of money because it's safer for everyone if we do it that way. You know, and you could still phase it in over a couple of years, but you want to have the same model and you want to have something new, right? You don't want to buy retrofitted from FDNY or wherever else, right, off eBay. You
No,
want to have new stuff, so.
there was a firefighter in Kingston, I guess close to 10 years ago now, that died. I don't know if they determined the cause was that he had an unfamiliar pack, but he grabbed a pack off another department's rig. It was not something he was trained on.
Anyone else? Okay. EV suppression equipment grant?
So, a quick email, that got lumped into a conversation with the air packs with the assembly member.
Mm-hmm.
He said that he does not give out, or just can't, I don't know, whatever word he said, anything less than $125,000. The EV grant was like a third of that. So.
Get 3 of them?
Yeah, I mean, the
Can we use the money for something else?
well, that's where, you know, hey, maybe we can, if it's $120,000, maybe we can say, hey, can you know, let's talk about air pack with this, and the air packs are anywhere between $10,000 and $12,000. So
So we get 3 or 4 of them?
we can get more than $120,000 worth of stuff.
Okay.
Shoot for the moon. If he lands somewhere in the middle, then
Right.
you know, I spoke with the staffer from Scoops's office, and they seemed willing to help out with it as well. So if it comes out that the village only needs to buy 2 or 3 of them at the end of the day, then
What do you need from us on that?
really nothing. I mean, are you guys okay with me, comfortable with me, you know, talking with them directly on, you know, getting this stuff scheduled? And I'm not gonna make any decisions, but just stuff to
I'm fine with it.
moving forward with this.
Yeah, we're fine with it. Just tell us what you need from us and we'll help you. While you're chatting out, you want to talk about the membership report?
Yeah, so nothing too extravagant for the month. The one thing that I will note, 2 of them. Probationary firefighter Wilhelm is no longer probationary firefighter. He got taken off probation at the company level. I would assume that would also take care of the department level, but that's something for discussion, because I know in like the water department or any other village department, it's like, yeah, you know, make a motion that we take probationary, whatever,
Right.
or, you know, status, so,
Those paid employees?
yeah, I mean,
I don't know, Chief, do we have to do anything for a status change at the Board of Fire Commissioners level?
Have to? There's no rules yet, but
Do you want us to?
I think it's a good idea that it goes on the record that you guys know about it and approve it. Just so we're not doing anything reckless. We're not taking Carol off of probation.
So do we motion that?
I make a motion that we take firefighter Matthew Wilhelm off probationary firefighter status.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
You just write a note. Okay.
We'll also note that the awards winners for the year were noted in the report. Both of these individuals have been a tremendous asset to the department. So we recognize them all for their achievement for the past year. I will say that there were a couple members that also stuck out, but these two members, were the ones that we chose. The probationary efficiency drill was changed. We had that heat wave that week, so we kind of canceled it. Didn't want anyone taken away on a stretcher, so that's why we did that. But you also, I don't know if anyone has the thing on the report on there. Matt's taken firefighter 1. He's also signed up for a couple other classes. He took truck company ops. He's signing up for engine company ops and firefighter survival. I know Matt's not worried about training stipend or stuff like that. But if that was a kid that was 18 years old or 19 years old, $500 might be
Right.
some good money for them.
Well, I think we agree with that. I think we should be paying our volunteers to train. Anything else on membership?
Nope, just take note of the probies up there. Maggie Sweeney, she's going to be moving up to Onondaga County for college in August, so she's going to be put on educational leave. She's actually going to do a bunk-in program up there to answer their calls for service, and in exchange, she's going to get housing and everything.
If I can speak on that a moment, if you don't mind.
Where you guys do that?
Recruitment and retention. We all, I think, got an email from, whether it was from the clerk or somebody else, about the recruitment and retention grant that's available. That is something that we could use if we truly wanted to start looking at a bunk-in type program.
Okay.
Again, I don't think that we're the correct people to be writing those grants, because when you're talking that type of money, it's a very competitive grant. You gotta have somebody who writes these grants for a living. And that's where I think the village should engage in a competent grant writer to help write that grant. And they give out the federal government gives out 3 different grants each year. One's recruitment and retention. The other one is equipment. And the third one, I believe, is it fire prevention and training, I think, possibly.
What, the safer grants?
Yeah, the safer grants. So,
Yeah. Yep.
so the village should really consider engaging a grant writer. I believe the town uses one, and they've been very successful. So.
How do we express that to them? Kind of feel like they know it, but they don't want to do anything about it.
I think, but at the end of the day, and a couple years ago, there was an interview done by Chief of Department over in Woodbury Fire Department, Chief Burke, and I think they maybe got like a little bit of a grant money or something, and he said it perfectly, and this is said through state law and everything. Ultimately, the responsibility of fire service is up to the village board. Right? That supersedes all of us in this room.
Correct.
I think the village board knows that they have a fire department, but they are hesitant to fully accept that for some reason. Not saying they haven't supported us, because they have.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of things that need to be done, And like I told you in the email, is you got volunteers that save you with the current staffing right now $3 million a year in salaries and benefits. I personally feel this isn't just the fire department. I think sometimes the volunteers are taken for granted. I think that we want to help, and that drive is sometimes abused for different things. But I think they just need to somehow, and I know we're trying, but they just need to hey, that's our fire department. We need to take care of it. And I get it. We don't go to fires every month, but there's also trees don't get knocked down every month either.
Right.
But they just bought a brand new wood chipper. So I get it. You're $25,000 or $50,000 to $2 million, but
Right.
it's an ownership thing.
I agree with you.
And like I told you on the 4th, I'd be more than happy to come here and
Speak to them.
speak on that. So
I feel you. I agree with you.
But regards to grant writers, why can't we look for a grant writer, the fire department, and then go to them and say, hey, we found somebody that can write some grants just for the fire department, and I don't know what the cost would be, and try and say, we'll absorb the cost through our operating budget.
I think we can do that. We did that last year with the grant for the air packs that we didn't get. We didn't get the grant. But if we know what we want to go after, I think we can do that.
Okay.
Right, but do we have someone to engage in writing?
ChatGPT.
No, we don't have them yet.
That's-
We would have to find that
That's
person.
half the problem. That's the bigger part of the problem.
So, and this kind of goes back to priorities, is what kind of grant, what are we looking to do with the grants? Are we looking for a grant to buy a tower ladder? Or are we looking for a grant to, put new floors in the firehouse? I know.
I think we're looking for a grant writer that's gonna know the grants that are available and come back to us, say, hey, this is available.
So you're looking for someone to research these grants.
That's something different. But we also have to tell them what we want.
Yeah. Well, we want all of the above when it comes down to. I don't think we should say, hey, we only want grants that work on the fire. I think find whatever grants are out there for equipment and station maintenance and stuff like that. Because there's all kinds of grants out there, I'm sure. I don't know what they all are. Whether they're the safer grants or Port Authority grants or a little grant that Hochul gives out for building.
I have no idea how much that researcher would cost, but
I
It
don't
is something
think
we could do.
I don't think they'll be doing too much research, because if they're in the business of writing grants, they're gonna know what grants are available. You would have a better idea than me,
There's
but
like a website called like Fire Grants or something that you can sign up for, and it'll give you, who's the dude from Rescue Me there, Dennis something or other. He's Dennis Leary. He does grants. Brittany just gave us a State Farm grant. So it depends. Are you looking for little things to get done, and this is a conversation that we can have, or we're going to do big things? Because if you do little things, they be more achievable, because everyone wants
Right.
that $1 million check from the
Right.
government to say, here you go buy your fire truck.
Right, but smaller piece of the pie,
Yeah, if you're
multiple
looking
times.
if you're looking to do radios and bring them up to NFPA standards, then you can go for a smaller grant.
All right, so it's not clear to me on how to proceed.
I do think we gotta bring forward a list of the things that we want to get.
Yeah, and
see, and that's where we need to get those things whether we get grant or not.
Right.
It goes back to the priorities. We set the priorities here. get grants, or village has to
So
fund.
we can all agree that number one priority right now is closing the deal with the tower ladder and getting that contract signed.
Yes.
My opinion, yes.
Number two would be for operations, this is separate from, everything would be air packs, be number two.
Right.
You know, something that the village could probably manage would be updating the key system for the building, or update, you know, security concerns for the building,
Dave is looking into that.
so. Then you start getting into the mundane stuff of like the radio equipment, you know, achieving that, they call it like P25 now, which is the NFPA stuff. You know, all your radios are built to that standard.
Okay.
So it just all depends. You know, the one big thing, and again, this is an ownership issue, is fire trucks. You know, the preventative maintenance. You know, we had an issue the other day where the Vogel lube system on our only operating engine decided to spill a whole bunch of lube out on the floor. So all of our heads, when we looked at it and we saw it, were like, oh my god, this is like we taking the brush truck and the tanker to fires now, I guess. You know, stuff like that someone just needs to say, yes, I'll take that and I'll own it. Because if the village is not going to, then the commissioners, like we spoke about, can say, hey village, you have a lot on your plate. Can you allow us to take some off of this so we can put forth these things?
Okay.
You know, that's just the way I look at it. And if the village has a lot on the plate, and then you guys say, hey, you know, vote on this and allow us to go pursue a grant writer, and you guys can, you know, approve it, say, hey, we're gonna, you know, contract with, you know, Wade and Tom to go write grants for us. Because we talk about a lot of things, and it goes to the village board, and that gets mixed up into, you know, buying topsoil for a garden and, you know, sidewalks and all this stuff. So
Butterflies. All right, well, we're available and all ears, and open to suggestions. I don't know really what else to put out there. We squirreled away out of the membership report. I'm gonna say that we are good with that.
yeah, if you guys have any questions on that, you just shoot me something.
I'm gonna move us to department report, hot off the presses.
Big month.
I'm gonna start with that there's a error in number 3. Professor McGonigal did not complete firefighter 1. It was actually Maggie's Weenie, not Maggie Smith.
I can correct that and resend it. Very good. Anything else?
That was the only error that was pointed out to me.
Okay. Anyone else on monthly? Can I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion, we accept.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, so that's monthly budget. I sent them out. All right, so Commissioner Buck has created a building maintenance document to try to help us get through taking care of their building. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it. And now we can discuss it.
I looked at it, I like it, it's a start. It gives some structure to how things are supposed to flow.
Thank you for taking time to look at it.
And I do believe Matt Wilhelm, he was appointed by the civil officers to take care of looking at the building down there and whatnot. He did put together a list. I don't know, Chief, did he provide that to you? I know I got a copy. I wasn't sure if you were on the email or not.
I did not get a list. I know he reported out during the company meeting.
Yeah, so I'll get that list for my email and send it over to Commissioner Buckus in the morning.
I'm sorry, I was wrong. I did get it.
Just for clarification, when you said, Mike, can you handle this regarding the parking lot, were you talking about the assistant chief or the commissioner? Okay,
The commissioner,
I forgot about that.
about what?
No, when I saw the email, it said about the parking lot, Mike, can you handle this? I'm like,
I didn't specify.
no.
Sorry about that,
And I
which now
forgot
makes
that-
sense on why you responded that you spoke to him.
That's
Okay.
exactly it.
Okay,
Yeah, so the way I think this should work is we don't get those emails in the middle of the month. We get a list of things that we can then come through the chief,
Exactly.
and then I could be the liaison with the
Correct.
highway super, no problem with that, and I can meet with him periodically
Yeah.
and see where he's at with it. This way, we're not pinging him all the time, and
There's a structure.
and things come up, right? We get that, and so if they're important, safety issue, then
Absolutely.
however, whatever it takes to get it done, we do it. And but if it's, let's pressure wash the building, or let's seal some cracks in the parking lot, or whatever, we
Yeah.
can prioritize that, and then I can
Yeah.
work on that with him.
And I think like one of the things like the parking lot, when I spoke to Dave, you know, it's not budgeted, you know? So I think those larger items like that, if it's something that the commissioners are, would like to be done, we need to bring that to the board's attention during their budget season, which starts in October and November. So really in October and November, we should be putting together that short-term plan for maintenance. Hey, we want the doors, or we want the parking lot paved. Our wish list, right?
mm-hmm,
We'd like the parking lot paved. You know, we'd like the roof, and I'm not saying the roof needs it.
Right,
but the
example.
roof has to be repaired. Gutters have, you know, whatever it is, those bigger ticket items that you're not gonna carry out of your daily budget, operations.
how has the parking lot been maintained for the last decade?
it hasn't.
Seal coated,
Simple answer. Out of a DPW budget?
no, out of the firehouse maintenance budget.
Okay. Any idea when it was last done?
Before I was remembered.
I don't think since I've been in as chief or assistant chief.
Yeah, a few years. Which is, it's fine that you do that, but it's not fixing the overall problem.
Yeah, but as far as the parking lot's concerned, the members train out there pretty regularly, and throughout the 4 seasons that the village sees throughout the year, the environmental damage is done on the blacktop. The members, while using hose lines, will not because it's done purposefully, will, if there's a patch and that patch has been there for 15 plus years, that patch will no longer be there because the hose line will get underneath there and will simply just lift it up. I would also argue that that's probably the most used municipal lot in the village, just due to the amount of traffic with the school and everything, being there.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, if someone gets hurt, they're not going to say, "Hey, let me speak to the DPW superintendent." They're going to come knocking on the door and say, "Can I speak with the fire chief?" It's a firehouse.
I would say the last time we had any real blacktopping done there was the front apron, and that was probably 20 years ago.
Wow.
We had, I believe it was Van Etten came in and re-blacktopped the whole front apron. That's the last time there was any significant blacktopping other than patching.
Okay. Going back to the document for a minute, so we can use this document as is. Do we need to do anything to make it a procedure, I guess?
You're talking about the chain of command one or the maintenance one?
The maintenance process. Which is the flow chart.
The flow chart's just for the non-firematic stuff that goes to the highway suit.
Right.
Yeah, just let me know what, like, the captain and the 2 lieutenants, if someone says, hey, you know, a window, it needs to get cleaned, who am I just gonna, I take that and tell the chief and tell you, or?
So you give the chief a list,
Okay.
and then he's gonna give it to us, and then we'll take it to him, to the highway suit. But hopefully it's prioritized. I mean, obviously things come up that you didn't think of, or things come up, but
Yeah.
if we can just have some type of priority list, and we can try to see how this works.
Right, it's fluid, we can
Yeah, so what I'll do
update it
is,
as necessary.
once we have a list, I'll set up an appointment to meet with Mr. Halverson, myself.
So even if we come to you each month at this meeting with a list.
Yeah, I was planning to follow up with him quarterly, but I can email him a list.
You know?
And I would think do we have the administrative assistant gainfully employed yet, or? Because I would think that person
Kind
is
of.
the one that gets the quotes for the pressure washing. They're not doing, ply event thing, right? Because that's probably outside their area of expertise. But things that are mainstream, seal coating, all of that, they can probably do that instead of one of you
Well,
guys
that
doing
would
it.
probably be, like, seal coating, power wash would probably go through Dave, not the administrative assistant.
Okay. Well, I don't know how that would, if he would want a quote, then we could maybe provide that to him, but if he doesn't, then.
I think that would be a conversation with Dave. I think he would want his staff to get those sort of
That's fine.
quotes.
Yeah.
I would think regarding the parking lot, since he has no plan at this time because of funding, that you talk to him soon, because the best time to do any work in that parking lot is the summertime. School's out of session, that parking lot is used all the time for school. So if he doesn't have a plan or doesn't have the money the village hasn't committed, at least some type of temporary plan that he is looking to do, or just say, or he might say he's not doing nothing, but that, at least we would know then. Because that parking lot hasn't been seal coated, and like Mike said, the last time was when we had a county parade. So, and that was 2012. So, it's been years. I mean, multiple.
All right, anything else on building maintenance? We spoke pretty heavily, I would say, about goals and priorities. So I'm gonna move down to ongoing. A carryover from last month was equipment, outstanding equipment.
I just put that in my calendar as a reminder to get it done.
You leave it on?
Yep.
Okay. Building and grounds maintenance, I think we discussed last month about what we wanted, but that goes, we'll keep that as a placeholder for future, now that we've spoken about the document. Policies, bylaws, and guidelines.
The company vice president, Steve Calmari, is actually working on that more actively now with the committee.
Awesome.
I got a question on that bylaw and policies and stuff. And this is probably just for clarification. I know Steve's probably watching because he's home with his kids. Hi, Steve. How much do the company bylaws influence the department or the commissioners or the chiefs?
We're gonna have to work those things in there. They're gonna have to be company department bylaws.
So like the
It's all-
commissioners and will say, yes, we like this bylaw, or we like, and I'll read, like Cornwall-on-Hudson Fire Department, or, okay.
And I assume that the commissioners are not gonna have any comments on the fair committee or how many company meetings members need to attend, but we'll look at the more firefighting aspect of them.
No?
I was just thinking, if that's the case, it makes sense to me to have two separate documents. Because right now, the fire company has total control of the bylaws. If there's something that the commissioners don't like or the fire company doesn't like, if their views don't overlap, it's sort of just up to the company.
There will be elements that need to go in it that take a little bit of that control away. And I see what you're saying about two different documents, because there are two different concerns. We will get it worked out. When we spoke with the attorney up by Albany, I'm forgetting his name. He was surprised that we were talking to him without any problems having
Right.
arisen.
Right.
And if we address these bylaws correctly and get them into place, we'll skip those problems.
Right. Right, there'll be items that have nothing to do with us, and there'll be items that have that we have a lot of say in, so however that'll,
So right now, the
together.
bylaws don't speak at all about new company members coming to the commissioners. The new bylaws will have to address that. Just as, for example.
Right, I think that the commissioners would come up with policies though. You know, hey,
Yeah.
to be an active member, you have to do this, this, and this.
Yes.
You know?
which you kind of did already, right?
Exactly, so. you're
So
gonna
that
have
gets-
policies.
That gets incorporated.
So that there, it wouldn't necessarily be incorporated into the company bylaws, but that would be your general policy number one section,
Okay,
you know?
Do
So put the binder together and start putting it in there.
right.
and this could sound foolish, but do the commissioners have a mission statement for like the department? Like usually like the number one thing that when you get handed a booklet, hey, welcome to the department, is a mission statement, you know? Something more than just, hey, we're here to fight fires and save lives, but
Right. We had discussion on a mission statement, and you wrote one?
yeah, I think it stemmed from like my fire officer one class.
Right.
So I think you're kind of making some policies here, they're just not being put into a binder, you know, in terms of your active status, you got that policy. In terms of workflow.
Taking a person off of probation.
You know, in terms of, you know, maintenance flow, where, you know, that flow chart and how things are gonna flow, that's a policy.
And we do have SOGs, we should probably bring those to the commissioners to look at, and those become, where appropriate, policies of the commissioners.
You know, where it says don't ride the back step anymore.
That would be a policy.
Right.
Communications are on channel 2, you probably don't care about it being a policy.
Don't get on a fire truck if you've been drinking. right?
Yeah.
But presently, if that happens, and a member is brought up on some kind of, whatever you wanna call it, where does it go? Does it go to the board of trustees of the fire company, or does it come to the fire commissioners?
I think things like getting on a fire truck drunk, would go to the chief and commissioners as appropriate, not to the company officers. Company officers, you didn't pay your dues, you were not behaving appropriately at a company event, not a department event. My opinion.
Okay.
I would tend to agree with that, cause it's village equipment. And you have control over that, according to state.
So if the captain brings at a board of trustees meeting that regarding new members, certain members aren't attending and stuff, is it the board of trustees' responsibility to handle that, or is it at the board of fire commissioners?
That's a squishy question, I think, because if they're not attending drills, they're probably also not attending meetings, and meeting their responsibilities there. So, it's probably easier, especially somebody who's on probation. It's probably easier for the company to address many things, especially if it involves, saying to a member, you're not gonna get off probation, it's time to turn in your pager and part ways. Because the company is a not-for-profit organization. Board of Fire Commissioners in the village of Cornwall-on-Hudson. If somebody has a problem with that, the village is more easily sued than the company is. So I think those two things are gonna run together and gonna continue to run together. And it's probably easier to look at fire departments that have multiple companies and watch the way they behave, because the lines are gonna be clearer there. With us, things tend to mix together, sometimes inappropriately. Did I answer your question?
Sort of.
And I think if the person, the firefighter, isn't meeting their participation requirements, it becomes a commissioner's item each year
Right,
at their
That's what I was
annual
thinking.
review.
right.
So whereas the company may look at it on a monthly basis, the commissioners are looking at it on an annual basis for the different requirements.
Gonna get to us eventually.
Exactly. So it's easier to handle it at the company level
Right,
before it gets to the
the
commissioner.
day-to-day operation.
Yeah, usually the company handles their, I should say our, membership review monthly, more focused on the probies. However, I've been kind of trying to get, active members in there. And we also review the, who met their LoSAP points for the year, like February, March, or April.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay, does
I do
anyone,
also know that this is something, the active status of members is something that's gonna be brought up in the bylaw change, and they're gonna be reviewed more regularly. So,
That's active company members, that's not active firefighters.
okay, thank you for clarification.
You guys are still gonna say you need a physical, you need, to show your proficiency, you need to have a fit test. You have to do all that stuff before you put a foot on the fire truck.
Okay. Any additional business? Meeting dates. I know that Commissioner Buckus has a conflict for August 4th, right?
For first week of August.
Yeah, so. The 11th is not a work session, is it?
No,
Can we change ours from the 4th to the 11th? Would that work?
I'm good.
You good with the 11th, Mike?
I'll have to check my work schedule, but my family schedule's okay.
Okay. And then September 1st is obviously a holiday. Jeff's not available for the first 2 weeks of the month. I don't know what we do there. Mike, would they be back to work sessions
it
twice?
should be.
So it'd be the 8th, so the 8th we can't meet.
But I would suggest, no matter who's not available, if you have two people,
Right.
you have a forum, you can have a meeting. It's gonna happen from time to time.
No, I understood. I have a conflict for the 2nd. Mike, you wanna wait and talk about September and August?
I'll
Well,
check.
actually, the admin asked for a date. I said I would talk about it at the meeting.
I'll know tomorrow. I'll check tomorrow.
Okay, so for September, 1st and 2nd are no good. I could do 3rd, 4th. 3rd and 4th are good, so.
Yeah, right now it looks good to me.
Okay. Anyone from the, go ahead,
You mentioned the admin.
right?
You've seen
Yep.
emails going back and forth?
Yep.
About her duties and whatnot,
Mm-hmm,
or their duties.
right.
I don't know if the person's actually taking on those responsibilities.
Right. Well, they're trying to, from what I saw in the emails, they're trying to get a handle on what is required,
Yeah,
so,
but that,
You
they
know
are
better.
in a full-time position at this point.
okay.
So I guess the question becomes, when do they start fulfilling those duties?
Put it in bylaws.
You know what I mean?
Right. Do you need us to have any conversation about that, or let them build what they're building? I don't know.
I'll
I
I'll
will
talk
say
with Doris
probably
if you wanna be
needs
part
to
of
be
that conversation.
Tom, sorry, I couldn't hear you because
I'll talk with Doris about it. I'll see, do you wanna
Okay.
join the conversation?
I don't need to be unless you
Okay.
want me in there.
Nope.
Tom, sorry.
It would probably just need to be figured out before like October, because that's usually when you guys, when you said you wanted the physicals and the proficiency stuff in.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously,
There's other stuff
there's
to
other stuff that can be done.
No, that's what I'm saying, I just,
Right. No later than?
yeah.
I got you.
That's when the heavy lifting starts.
Right. Okay.
You know, 'cause I almost think that they were trying to take on those duties to write a new job description and create a new position. I don't know any details,
I understood.
but there is a person temporarily in a position.
Now they have to make a job out of it. I get it. Okay. Anyone else? I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, 19:08. Thank you.
Oh, do you see the shift module class now? Oh.